Now, it goes without saying that I am a huge Goosebumps and kids horror fan in general. And there have been Goosebumps movies that came out which ended up being blockbuster successes, at least for the first one especially, which is the Goosebumps 2015 movie that came out by Sony. And then a few years down the line, we got Goosebumps 2 Haunted Halloween. Now, the first 2015 movie ended up getting worldwide success, ended up being super famous. You can go see clips online on YouTube of the movie with millions upon millions of views. They got Jack Black, Dylan Minnette, Ryan Lee, a bunch of star power in it. Even R.L. Stine appears as a character in the movie. But I remember that despite the love that it got from fans and a lot of the good reception that it had, I enjoyed the movie a little bit and I had some fun with it, but I did think that it had problems. It felt very much like a Jumanji kind of ripoff. It fits that family adventure Sony build and mold that gets attached to a lot of their movies, and it felt kind of unoriginal. Kind of went down the easy and safe route out of many different avenues that the movie could have taken. But who would have known that 9 years down the line in 2024, when I was searching for horror movies that came out during that year that I wanted to watch and looked interesting, I ended up finding this movie. Shout out to Foundflix, because Ending Explained, I saw that he was talking about it. I decided, you know what, even though I didn't watch his video, it looks interesting from the movie poster. Might as well pick it up and watch it. And it ended up being a lot more fun than I was expecting. And when I finished the movie, I felt like it had a lot of Goosebumps and kids horror vibes within it, throughout its veins, throughout its structure, throughout some of the tropes and the interesting plot points, the nice creature feature in it, the super schlocky comic book kind of vibe that the story gave off. And because it was really good and I had a lot of fun, I knew a few other reviewers who ended up checking it out, some friends of mine, and they ended up really enjoying it as well. So I felt like that this was an underrated, overlooked movie that's come out in the past 5 years for the horror genre. And as a kids horror fan, and as a fan of those more schlocky, anthology feeling type of movies, I thought that this one was especially one to look out for. But it's kind of gone under the radar. But now I'm going to be talking about it today because yes, the story, despite being an adult horror movie, despite having cussing in it and blood and some other things, there are so many elements of this movie that feels like something you would get out of a modern Goosebumps story. And yet it's really well done and it's a lot of fun. And I think it's super interesting and exciting and brings some new flavor to the normal horror genre that you see. And again, fits more along with that kids horror subgenre vibe. And that is the movie Sting 2024. Now, for any of you who are curious to go watch this movie, I did rewatch it, just actually like 10 minutes ago. I finished up the movie. And it's on Tubi to watch for free. So you can look up Sting 2024. Tubi has it on there for free. Shout out to Tubi. And if you want to go watch this whole thing, go check it out there and then come back to this video review and watch it. But if you want to hear a little bit about the plot without me spoiling too much and kind of talking about why I think that this movie sets a standard for what Goosebumps movies really could be and should be in terms of what they offer with original stories that feel like the genre and yet kind of expand on it, are really well done and bring a lot of new exciting stuff, you should check out and stay for this video review. So without further ado, let me get into a little bit about the plot of Sting 2024, the positives that I have with it, and kind of why I see this as potential avenue for what Goosebumps movies could go down in the near future. So let's go. So Sting 2024 basically opens up with this foreshadowing kind of cold open where you have this old lady who has dementia inside of this New York apartment building who's hearing something very loud scurrying and moving around her walls. And this is making her paranoid. This is making her scared. So she ends up calling in this very eccentric, funny exterminator guy who comes in and immediately tries communicating with her. You get some impression that he's been here before and dealt with some of her antics and might think that she might be on one of her crazy dementia episodes. But soon he starts hearing something actually moving through the walls. And as he starts to go investigate, he might find some evidence that whatever is in the walls of this apartment building has probably attacked some people, and he might end up becoming a victim to its onslaught. And all while this is happening, the old lady gets back to watching her B monster movie. It's like Gilman or Lake Monster or something on her little box TV. And because she has dementia, she ends up ignoring the fact that he's pretty much getting slaughtered in another stepfather one of the rooms in her apartment, and she's telling him to shh, be quiet, because she thinks he's just being loud while she's watching her movie. And effectively, she ends up going back to the phone book and calling some more exterminators from the phone book to appear. And that might lead to a never-ending cycle as to what's going on. And that's the cold open. You get some slaughter off the rip. You get some strange, crazy stuff going on in this apartment building with some comedy mixed into the horror. And then you cut to 4 days earlier. And 4 days earlier is where you find out where this story all began. And I'm not lying to you folks, this is probably one of the most crazy and schlocky openings to a horror movie that I've seen in a while. Very comic book feeling, and I don't even really want to describe it, I just want to show you. So here you go. Yeah, so basically you cut to this meteor from space crashing down on Earth, getting to New York City during a blizzard, and ends up smashing into this apartment building window, crashing into this dollhouse in a room. And you quickly get introduced to the main protagonist of this movie, who is this middle school 12-year-old girl named Charlotte. It's a play on Charlotte's Web. And Charlotte is a rebellious girl. You find out very quickly that her whole family lives in this apartment building. The old lady with dementia is actually her grandma. And the landlord lady, who's kind of mean and cheap, who owns this entire apartment complex, is actually her aunt. And you see that the reason why she's rebellious, the reason why that she's moving through vents, right? She's moving through the ventilation system in this apartment building, spying on different people and breaking into rooms and doing all these things, being a delinquent, is because of her family situation. And that's because in the apartment that she lives in, her parents are too busy for her, okay? So she has a mother who's obviously too busy with work, and she has a stepfather because her real father actually left their life, didn't keep in contact. So now her new stepfather, she's getting acclimated to. He works maintenance in the apartment building, but at the same time, he makes comic books on the side. And that sparked a lot of creativity for her because she's a comic book fan. She's very creative. She likes writing and drawing and making her own crazy superhero, supervillain akin type of stories. And that sort of serves as like a bonding point between her and her stepfather. But again, he's super busy all the time. Mother's super busy. And they just recently had a new baby. So because she has a very young baby brother, they have to spend all their time focusing on him and focusing on work. And she ends up getting no attention. So that's why she ends up being rebellious. She ends up sneaking into places she shouldn't. That's why she's not into your typical girly dolls and stuff. You see that not only is she into drawing comics and, having all these crazy, scary things in her room, she's also interested in insects. And that's why when she ends up sneaking into an apartment building, one of the rooms, I should say, which ends up being that old lady with dementia, her grandma's room, she ends up finding this dollhouse. And that dollhouse is coincidentally where that little meteorite crashed into with that particular Black Widow spider. And it quickly ends up getting an attachment to Charlotte, and she ends up taking it in as a pet, not telling anybody about it. And as she's taking care of this pet and you kind of see the different crazy things going on in this apartment with all the colorful characters, you then quickly get reminded that this is not a normal spider, okay? This is clearly an extraterrestrial, clearly an alien that snuck on board. And as she's basically feeding this spider all the different insects that she finds, like cockroaches around this dirty apartment building, she sees that it's able to mimic voices. She will whistle to it as a feeding whistle, and it ends up mimicking those sounds back to her. And that makes her realize that, okay, something is strange going on here. And what quickly ends up being a problem is that the spider keeps on growing day by day by day. And the more fascinated and the more she learns about this creature that she got as a pet, this Black Widow spider, it quickly keeps on growing to the size that her insects are not enough food for it, right? It has to get bigger prey. And that's when it may start escaping the jar that she keeps it in and ends up actually going into the ventilation system, much like herself, and finding bigger prey, whether it be pets or maybe something even bigger than that. So I'm going to leave it there, right? That's basically where a lot of the creature feature stuff ends up coming in, and she has to find a way to solve the day because unknowingly, a lot of her emotions subconsciously seems to be influencing the spider and some of the things that it does. And that's when you really kick into the action, some kills, and a way for her to try to solve the scenario, which might end up involving some family bonding in a very traumatic fashion. But that's the plot without me giving too much away. So yeah, as I said, I would probably give this like an 8.5 out of 10, very good. I think this is a super fun and interesting creature feature story with a lot of kids horror elements to it. Again, the colorful characters throughout the story. You got all the different family members that live in the same apartment building. You have the main character, Charlotte, who's into comics and all these different things. The parents being too busy and not having enough time with her. That's a kids horror trope. The fact that one of her parents is into a more unique job, which is comic book drawing, ends up feeling like something you would read in a Goosebumps book. And a lot of that comic book influence based off of what her dad does and what her interest in ends up playing into the movie because the movie feels like an EC Comics kind of story. It feels like something you would see from a comic book with the way that it plays out. And it's very schlocky. It mixes in humor with the horror, which is again something you would see in Goosebumps. And the creature feature stuff is really fun. You got this alien spider that she names Sting, and the way that it comes in, the way that it grows, again, you got that more so stereotypical kind of big creature, creature feature stuff that you get. But I think that the way it's done throughout the movie is kind of horrific enough. If you're scared of spiders, I think this movie can get to you. There are some bloody and disturbing attack scenes with this thing. And again, a lot of the colorful characters, Charlotte is quite the interesting main character. She does a good job in terms of you getting nervous about her whenever she's interacting with Sting and seeing how she's, bonding with her family, how she interacts with her baby brother, and how she comments that he's like the bane of her existence, which is a typical, younger sibling to older sibling kind of thing you see in kids horror and Goosebumps. The way that she interacts with her dad is probably the most interesting dynamic in this movie because you see her very much looking up to him as a hero figure. She's very in love with him. She feels like he opens up a lot of her creativity and stuff, and she wants to love him, but at the same time she can't get over the fact that she's getting ignored and the fact that her real dad is missing and not in their life, and she misses a lot of the time that she spent with her real dad because she's 12 years old. She's not young enough that she doesn't remember time with their old dad. No, she remembers it and misses it, but she has to get used to this new transition. On top of that, she's got a new baby brother who's, a new transition. So all those different things going on. You have a lot of funny characters like the old lady with dementia. She's hilarious, especially that opening scene where someone's getting killed in a room next to her and she's watching a bee monster movie while a real bee monster is killing somebody next to her that she called in. You called in and she's like, shh, watch the movie. That shit's funny. The exterminator guy, he is hilarious. He's really funny, and I could just post up a clip of this guy. He's got a ton of jokes throughout the movie.
That's one seriously fucked up bird. Looks like it tried to have sex with a blender.
So yeah, Frank offers a lot of comedy. I love seeing him throughout the movie and every appearance that he has. His actor does a great job. You also have this college student, I think, upstairs who is very deadpan and very serious, which juxtaposes a lot of the other characters. He's creepy, but he's nice and smart, so he's a very strange side character, and he's studying fish for some science breakthrough thing. So it's very schlocky in that regard, right? It's made to be bad on purpose with the fact that it's supposed to be fun, supposed to be comic feeling. Again, you have these crazy neighbors who really shouldn't make any sense, and yet they do, right? They're involved in this story. And I do like the climax, right? Not only do you get the disturbing creature feature, but the family bonding. You get that idea that there's trauma building, there's trauma bonding going on, coming together because there's a bigger threat at stake. And, the whole you gotta believe me thing is not really in this movie as much as you would expect there to be, right? Most of it is Charlotte hiding the fact that she kind of, in a way, created this monster, kind of fed this monster, even though it's its own separate thing, and you see the meteorite. It kind of plays together, the more that she behaves a certain way, the more that Sting ends up becoming a certain way. So it's almost like she has to take care of this responsibility, and at the same time the parents feel guilty for the fact that they haven't been involved with their daughter's life and doing a good enough job. So they feel like they have to participate and clean up this mess. So this monster, even though it's its own separate thing, it kind of represents the sort of guilt and buildup and problems condensed into one thing, right? That's been projecting off of them because it has been influencing this alien. So I think that's all really good, all really good stuff. And it even has a twist ending at the end, which again, very Goosebumps akin. So I think the reason why I believe that this movie kind of fits the blueprint for what future Goosebumps movies could be is a lot of nostalgic, fans and, other people. They always want faithful adaptations. They always want the same stories adapted, or stories that really shouldn't get adaptations getting adapted just cuz, which, I'm fine with. I can accept that for some stories, but I think it's more interesting to see original fun stories done that fit in the Goosebumps, subgenre, those type of vibes, yet they're extremely well done, which is something that this movie pretty much does. It's an original story. Yes, it has cussing, it has blood, it has things in that, but if you cut it out and adjust it, you could easily fit this into a PG-13 kids horror movie. So to me, or you can even pull it down even a little bit more, cut out some things and make it straight up PG. But what I'm saying is that this is like an original story that can fit within the franchise and very much does it. And I think that's interesting because you get something that's completely new and yet it's entertaining, which can show the potential of other writers, other authors, other directors, other creatives. And, it very much can open up the genre, right? It doesn't have to always rely on Stein. The genre doesn't always have to rely on stories that have already been made because, the original 90s TV show had some really good episodes, which were originals, which was Trilogy and More Monster Blood, which is that episode of Monster Blood on an airplane. Those are both really fun episodes that are originals. And people complained about them, but honestly, if you look at the episodes on their own, they're extremely well made and they're extremely, fun and exciting. So I think that this is what this offers. And I think all of you guys should go check it out. I mean, there's no reason not to. It's free on Tubi. You guys can watch it and let me know. But I think that is the future of, Goosebumps movies to be made, which is that we don't have to always rely on adaptations. We don't always have to focus on adaptations. Instead, there can be times that there are original stories being made by other people, and those stories can fit within the franchise and give us new content, right? And not just the lazy type of content we've been getting with modern Goosebumps books, because I said that this movie feels like modern Goosebumps, but it's just because of the way that it's set up, some of the way the characters act and stuff like that. But this is well made, right? This has the stuff that we're actually looking for as kids horror fans and Goosebumps fans. Meanwhile, the modern Goosebumps stuff we get oftentimes feels very hollow, feels very lackluster. So I think this gives you the best of both worlds. So I definitely recommend it. Again, I give it an 8.5 out of 10. Very good. All of you guys out there, go look up Sting 2024. Go watch it on Tubi. Let me know what you think. And if you're particularly a kids horror fan, or you're looking for more comic book creature feature feeling type of movies, there you go. Words get in the right sequence. You should definitely go give this a watch. And hey, man, I also found out that it's apparently Australian made. I know it's like Australian production design, and I saw some Australian movie company on there. So shout out to Bjorn, man. The Aussies out here making some good avenues for what kids horror could be, particularly Goosebumps. So yeah, that's all I got for today. If you guys enjoy this video, quick way to support me, and it's quite easy. All you gotta do, hit that subscribe button down below. All you gotta do is hit that like button down below and then comment down below. Have you watched this movie? If not, go watch it, make some time, and then come back to me and let me know. And that's all I got. So hope you guys have a great day. Go get some sunshine, spend time with some loved ones, and be careful of spiders. They're all around. And I've seen some big spiders recently, and yeah, I gotta get that flamethrower. And it's probably tucked somewhere in the garage, but it's needed now more than ever. And that's a fact. Deuces.